The following is a presentation of the Healthcare Facilities Network. Hello and welcome to the Healthcare Facilities Network. For a minute there, I couldn't remember if we were recording a podcast or doing a YouTube show, but this is the Healthcare Facilities Network, and I'm very happy that you clicked on this episode. And I'm happy to be joined by my two guests for an episode that's a little bit different than what we have done in the past. First, my two guests, by way of introduction, on the same row as me, we have Dave Neely. Dave is the Senior Director of Engineering up at Maine Medical Center in Portland, Maine. Dave, good morning. Thank you for joining.
Good morning, Peter. Thanks for having me.
No title change since the last time we spoke, or since I...
No title change. Nope.
You always like to make sure these things change rapidly these days. And down at the bottom part of the screen, we have Jeff Henne, who is joining us. Jeff is the Manager of Safety and Emergency Management at Penn Medicine down in Pennsylvania, under the guise or under the umbrella of Penn Health. Jeff, good morning. Thank you for joining.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having us.
Did I get everything right on that as well, title-wise?
Yep, you're great.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks, guys, for joining me. So today's episode, and it was suggested to me by somebody to do something like this, which is why we're doing it. We're going to take a look back at the date of November 22nd, 1963, which, in addition to having been my dad's 32nd birthday, was also the day that JFK was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. And what we want to do is look at that day through the prism of the Director of Facilities Management and the Director of Safety and Emergency Management at Parkland Hospital in Dallas, from their perspective on the day before, the day of, and the day after that tragic event. So it's kind of a facilities and emergency management perspective on the tragic assassination of JFK. You know, it's very easy. It's easy as we look back on it now, what that happened, some 60 years ago now. You kind of forget that there was a human being involved in that, and there was a family involved in that, especially with the mythology of the Kennedys over the years. So I always want to be, as we talk about these issues, sometimes you kind of forget this happened because somebody was killed, somebody was assassinated. So I want to be, obviously respectful of that, even though the mythology of JFK has grown far beyond what occurred on November 22nd of 1963. And then the second thing, just a podcast for folks. Rob Reiner, and I know Reiner can elicit responses on the political spectrum because he jumps into politics quite a bit. So independent of any politics, because we avoid politics on this, he released a great podcast at the end of last year. It's called Who Killed JFK? It's 10 episodes, and if you haven't listened to it, they're all released now, so you can binge it if you want. But if you haven't listened to it, I would recommend it. It was very interesting. No matter how much you think you know about the subject, you will learn something. So Who Killed JFK? Rob Reiner, highly recommended. So kind of with those caveats out of the way, what I'd like to do is we're going to make Dave the Director of FM at Parkland Hospital, and we're going to make Jeff the Director of Safety and Emergency at Parkland Hospital. But before we take a step back in time to 1963, let's just talk a little bit about today. Dave, I know your location up in Portland, Maine was frequented. Some of them have passed away now, by the Bush family, who is relatively local with their vacation home up in the Maine area. I know that your maternity ward, I think your big building there named after Barbara Bush.
Yep. Barbara Bush Children's Hospital.
Barbara Bush Children's Hospital. So just in general, Dave, how do you prepare? How does your facility prepare when you know that the past president is coming or came to your location? What happens when you're preparing? And I hate the term VIP because really I hate to elevate anybody above anybody else because we're all the same. For as much as I cannot stand the term, I'm going to use it. When a VIP, when your administration deems somebody to be a VIP, what do you do? How does it impact you?
Well, the planning's done in advance. I've been here for 2.5 years, and I was about a year in, and I got a call from security telling me that the Secret Service was going to be here tomorrow to do a tour. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Well, so this guy showed up in jeans and a flannel shirt. It's certainly not my expectation for Secret Service, but he was here to do a building tour. And they do a building tour every few years to see what's changed. So we got down into the sub basements and basements and crawl spaces and all of the places that the public generally doesn't go to.
Hmm.
It was just to update them on any changes we may have made and what kind of access they might need into the building if there was an event, what areas in the building they might have to protect. But that's, since I've been here, that's basically been the majority of it. The Bush sisters were here recently and they actually did a TV production. One of the Bush sisters was visiting the compound in Kennebunkport and she went into labor early. So apparently, unbeknownst to her, she was going to the Barbara Bush Children's Center. She didn't realize that the place she was going was named after mom. Or grandma rather. So she got here and was delighted at that fact. They delivered the baby, everything was fine. And then the two Bush sisters did a follow-up. Well, the prep that was done for the follow-up was essentially making sure that the paint was in order and there was a clear path. We did the facilities thing that we always do. But that was about the extent of it. I would imagine when the Bushes were in office, though, there was a great deal more time spent here by the Secret Service to make sure that the facility was ready and prepared in the event of one of the Bushes having been brought here. This is a trauma center, so this is the place that they would bring them to.
This is Peter Martin. If you or your organization is interested in advertising or partnering with the Healthcare Facilities Network, including sponsoring content, then please email me using the barcode in the lower right of your screen. From the trades level to the vice president level, from planning, design, construction, project management, compliance, safety, and security, the Healthcare Facilities Network reaches FM people where FM people are. How long did that Secret Service tour last, Dave?
Oh, the better part of a day.
And that's when they were out of office.
They were out of office, yeah. So
Yeah.
I would imagine when they were in office, it was a regular thing, and probably more than one agent searching the grounds. The agent had spent a great deal of time with the Bushes on the compound here, and spoke very highly of them, and the fact that they were very nice people, very easy to work with.
It's always amazing to me the logistics that goes on, with these events. Every day, especially when you're in office, every day, no matter where you go, the level of planning. Jeff,
Yeah.
how about you? You're down in a major metropolitan area with a major hospital down in Philadelphia. Any experiences with that?
A lot. Considering we have a brand new patient tower, and President Biden, and other, and plus we're right next door to me, like our street is the University of Penn. So, obviously Penn, it's an Ivy League school, very prestigious.
Yep.
Just like Dartmouth, Cornell, Yale, etc. But a lot of dignitaries and VIPs do come into the area because the kids go to school there. So working a lot with Penn Police, local PD, but we do have a lot of White House, just as Dave said, tours, but also there's a doctors from the Hammer team, which is the doctors for the president. So that travel with, whoever the president is at the time, even the vice president. So they do walkthroughs, and we had our own Secret Service walkthroughs. Also because of elections, he's hitting the cities harder than our swing states, just like Pence is.
Yeah.
And so we had to update a lot of forms. Also, a one footnote for those people that do have VIPs, updating our two policies. One is, a policy for the Secret Service when they come in, like a huddle sheet basically for security and leadership. And then also, which also covers some VIP pieces as well, but also we have a VIP huddle sheet for the ED. Considering we have the largest ED in the tri-state area right now, how to handle things when people come in, where we're going to place people just like Dave has at this facility or any facility. Secret Service will come in, they will take over, but those walkthroughs help to kind of work together as a team, not more an opposing force trying to come in and take over. because they know you have a normal business to run.
Right.
So again, all depends on acuity, what happens. But we do have a trauma center 4 blocks away from us here. So they do a lot of walk inspections as well as over there, just as much as they do here, just to update their records and everything. But it's funny how some of their documents do become outdated. Even their forms, I had to tweak a little bit for formatting and other stuff like that. But it was just, but they were, again, like Dave said, one guy was just dressed down, the other 2 guys were in suits.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the flavor of their background, But it's interesting. I always find it fun.
Yeah.
Because of the day, they invite other people that come on the tour, and I try to tell them, just keep it basic. They're there for a snapshot. When we can show them this, I go, no offense, they don't care about that. That's our responsibility. I know you want to show off things, but that's not the time to do that. They're just here just for a check box.
Right. I remember we were building a continuing care retirement community that had a healthcare component to it. It had a memory care and support unit to it, and it was the major donor was Sheldon Adelson, and Sheldon Adelson, who's now deceased, but he was a Jewish businessman who was loaded. He was a local guy out of Dorchester up here in Massachusetts, got involved in casinos and overseas and made a ton of money, and was very active politically and with many causes. And we were doing the groundbreaking, and 2 days before the groundbreaking, and it was a greenfield site. It was a beautiful construction project because it was one of those things where you didn't have to worry about residents. You didn't have to worry about brownfield construction. It was just a beautiful, pristine site. But one day it's all, nothing's up yet. And these big black Suburbans come onto the site, and out of it come the Mossad. He had Mossad who watched him, and these were big, imposing guys. These guys were dressed in black suits, 6'4", 6'5", and you could see, but they came on, and where's he going? What are we doing? What's the site like? But I just remember it was a little bit intimidating when you see them get out, and then they know what they're looking for, and then they're gone.
Yeah. I remember when we had the Pope visit, we had multi-jurisdictional walkthroughs, and each jurisdiction was driving for certain spots, certain helipads they used throughout the city. We had a lot of pre-meetings. It was a great experience.
Yeah.
But it's just like, who's going to trump who,
exactly.
on the totem pole? I'm like, well, Secret Service goes first.
Yeah.
The state police came in. We want to use this. I'm like, you're not. You already got trumped. So it's fun.
Well, the nice thing about that, Jeff, maybe in some ways, is you're not creating, like, the pecking order is established. You're just, it's not you.
Oh yeah. It's just, and we try to, and I'll just say this real quick. In one meeting, they said it was a no-fly zone over Philadelphia, and everyone, all the hospitals are there, and we looked at each other, and I said, no one's raising their hands. So I raised my hand. I go, that's not an option. And the lead Secret Service goes, well, what do you mean? I go, how are you going to get a heart or a trauma victim across the city, or an incoming, or a lung, or something that patient needs desperately? I go, if anything, they need to clear it with normal dispatch, which would be the City of Philadelphia OEM and so forth. And they're like, all right, that's acceptable.
Yeah.
like you need to think first before this is funny.
Jeff, I like to turn that around on them and say, if your father needed a heart and that was the only way to get it here, you'd want to change the rules, wouldn't you? And they flex.
Yeah, because when you guys have dealt with them, they must be they must be focused on mission, right? And whatever that mission is, kind of with those blinders on. And I guess that's your job to kind of go through those blinders.
We're the great blenders, or we want to call it that,
I guess I'm sure I knew this. You're in a really busy part of that city. I guess I don't know if I knew that UPenn was across the street from you.
I can putt a golf ball and hit one of the buildings. That's how.
Wow. Well, let's go back a little bit in time to November 21st, 1963. So obviously that would be the day before the president's visit. Now, one of the caveats, obviously, is 2024 is not 1963, right? So we're looking at the world is completely changing. Probably part of it is due to this assassination, which, which changed a lot, and it changed a lot how people, view their history. So the world has certainly changed, and the way the hospitals operate has certainly changed. But you're in Parkland accent almost came out there. You're in Parkland Hospital. You're doing your jobs. Dealey Plaza, where Kennedy was shot, is just about 3.7 miles away from where Parkland is. So it's very, very close. Now, you couldn't have foreseen the assassination, but the day before, what would you be doing? What do you think they were doing? Anybody want to take a crack at that first?
I probably essentially nothing. I think about, I was in New Hampshire at Exeter Hospital, and Barack Obama visited Portsmouth, 5-6 miles away. The day before we had just a quick sit down to remind everybody that he would be in town. And there really wasn't a heck of a lot for us to do. We had our normal emergency planning that was obviously all in place. But I think the biggest thing was just acknowledging the fact that a dignitary would be nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the potential, not so much for the president to come to us, more so if there was an issue, he would have gone to Portsmouth Hospital, and we would have gotten the fallout that might have had to been shifted from there to our location. So I think for the most part, we might be preparing for a multi-casualty incident.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be about it.
Yeah, look at the roles back then versus now. Back then, there wasn't a lot of safety or emergency managers. They were all fire marshals. That rolled up usually to either security or the facility manager. And emergency management really wasn't a thing back then to a certain degree.
Jeff,
like
when did the emergency manager role kind of become what it is?
I think pretty much, I think in the mid to late 70s in my mind, with the dawn of different OSHA regulations, some of the large environmental issues, ball Paul, the new carbide incident that they had, some OSHA acts for emergency management getting created. So I think from then, especially in the process safety side for gas companies, chemical plants, that's where it really kind of took off.
Mm-hmm.
They had probably some loose safety guys back then, but it wasn't anything like it is today. In the 70s when OSHA really started to take form, DEP, all the different the alphabet soup of regulatory agencies.
Yeah, that kind of created the need.
I think in the smaller facilities, it was piggybacked on the director of engineering.
Yeah.
And that was extremely common. And actually, in our case, we have 15 hospitals, a lot of small ones. And up until just recently, that was the director of engineering that was managing the emergency preparedness and safety.
Yeah. But even back then,
I've had it at different places.
Yeah, I mean, especially in rural areas, you're the chief cook and bottle washer.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're like a large facilities now. I've even seen some hospitals trying to, again, curtail a little bit of the safety piece and try to do it in-house. It doesn't work out that way. But back then, I think I would think if it was up, I was at Parkland, and I'm sure there's some folks from Texas might argue with me, but I think some folks would be trying to sneak out to try to go see the president.
Yeah.
I'd be more worried of trying to losing staff and anything to try to go see it. I kind of agree with Dee. They're probably not doing too much, just probably let people know, traffic alert, possibly because of road closures. And that's probably about it, not like it is today.
No, and it's really hard to kind of go back in time. And I saw a thing, why did I see this? Oh, because we're recording this the week before, or a couple of days before the NFC Championship game where the Detroit Lions will play San Francisco. And so I saw a thing on Twitter that has the last time the Lions were in the NFC Championship, was it like 1990, or the last time they made it this far? I think it was 1991 or 95, but there was a thing on Twitter about all of the things we have now that we didn't have then the last time. And whenever you look at those lists, it kind of knocks you back a little bit, right? Because 1995 or 1991, I don't think they feel like they're long ago. But then you see
No.
what we have now that we didn't have then. So it's really hard to think back to those times. And you're exactly right. So on November 21st, we're not doing a lot, I guess, relative to the presidential visit. But then when things change, I was doing a little bit of research for this because, again, there are so many people who know so much about it. But I guess it was about 1238 that Kennedy made his way to Parkland Hospital, and there was a MD who was a fourth-year medical student. He was on his neurosurgery rotation at Parkland Hospital, and he recalls when the call came in, and they were paging a doctor. He said, "They're paging Dr. Clark Stat. I had no idea what it was and thought it might." So Dr. Clark looks out the window, looks and says, "Maybe the stat has something to do with those limousines that are coming into the hospital." They ran down the stairs to the emergency room. They get in their scrubs. There was already a Secret Service agent at the door. They get into the emergency room at the same time JFK was entering on a gurney. The time is 12:38. So that's when Kennedy enters the hospital. What do you think? Two questions. Number one, can you guys explain a little bit of the interaction of your roles today in 2024? How you guys play off each other, how you interact with each other, what that, the nature of the relationship between the facilities department, the emergency management team. So can we talk about today? But then what do you think when that call comes in back in 1963? What are you guys doing at that moment? So let's start with now, and then we'll go back to then.
I think our roles overlap constantly.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm our safety department, our emergency management department, and security department. We're in almost constant communication, daily communication for everything that goes on in the facility.
Yep.
I mean, you think about the security aspects of the building where we've got swipe cards for everything,
Yeah.
cameras all over the place. Well, all of that stuff needs to be maintained, and at the same time establishing best practices for how to use them. We mechanically, we know the limits of the system, whereas security, safety, they know what they're trying to accomplish. So we have to work together to figure out how to get the systems to be compliant from a life safety perspective, but also to accomplish the objective for security. But if even for something as simple as a snowstorm, we talk through the event, so we make sure that we're covering each other and we're working as a team.
Yeah, I agree with Dave 100%. It's, I call it the service departments. We all work together hardly. We're like the eyes for the facility to make sure, the staff and patients are safe and they just keep going for normal business continuity for everything to kind of make it seamless.
Yeah.
For everything. So it's always communication. You look at stuff today versus back then. They didn't have cameras. They didn't have access control. They probably had security posts, all over the place. No sprinklers back then to a certain degree. Full stations. A lot of fire extinguishers, but a lot of rounding in general. For stuff versus today, you're using a lot of AI technology to help out, track, trend, statistics, everything for patient, incoming versus set up the command center. If me and Dave were working together, we would be in the command center with security. I have cameras set up, looking everything to the outside. I showed Secret Service that when they would walk through. So obviously they would have posts, at different areas, so they have the eyes and ears of what's going on. You want to set up break rooms for them, touchdown spaces. Again, that's why I said those huddle sheets are important to try to have a good game plan, to make a good offensive game plan when they come in. So you're not trying to look like you're fumbling.
Yeah.
Or trying to, for folks. And, having that documentation is important because of transition and turnover for staff. And I hate to say this, you know, I'm a big fan of writing things down and creating policy procedures, huddle sheets because of that institutional knowledge. As people retire and leave,
Yeah.
there's facility managers that have been here for 40, 45 years, and they walk down the hallway, they go up in the ceiling, there's a pipe valve here. Well, it's not marked. I know it's there. And
It's there.
you know, he's right. Even on the
Yeah.
university side, you know, we help out them because their guys are young. And they don't know, but our guys have been around so long, they know their facilities just as much as they know ours. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's a huge team effort.
How has the staying in today, 2024, and Jeff, you kind of hit on it a little bit, but I guess, you know, society is pretty chaotic these days. You guys are both located in cities, you know, metropolitan areas. How has the how have you guys had to not how have you guys had to change what you do, or due to kind of the unrest that exists, whether mental illness is on the rise while beds decrease, so you have patients who are coming in who are, you know, unfortunately stabbing ED department personnel. How is kind of the evolution of society changed? It's obviously made this much more difficult due to society changing.
You know, we just had an active shooter incident in Lewiston, just north of here,
Yeah.
half hour north. It was quite a night.
Yep.
Shortly after that, we started getting requests from every one of our hospitals. We need a camera here, a door there. You know, we need armed guards in our lobbies, and, you know, all kinds of security aspects. And, you know, you have to draw the line and say, wait a minute, you can't just go and do everything that everybody wants. You have to have a collective plan. And that's the process that we're going through. And it's going to cost millions of dollars to upgrade the security throughout all of the organizations, from parking lot lighting to cameras, metal detectors at doors, lockdown access. Training people is probably one of the most difficult things. But Peter, you went down the road of the behavioral health folks, and that's a major league crisis for those folks, but also for everybody else. So as a result of COVID, a lot of care centers have shut down because they can't afford to pay the salaries. And people have moved on from working directly for a care center, hospital, whatever, and gone to working for travelers. The cost is prohibitive, and so many small centers can't sustain. So now what's happening is our emergency rooms are getting very overcrowded.
Yeah.
And there's no second level for people to go to. So I was thinking about, you know, tying this back to the JFK situation, or a visit from a dignitary that you know, we've heard stories about they evacuate a whole floor and the president takes over the whole floor of the hospital. Well, we're a 700-bed facility here, and we had 730 patients last week. So how do you possibly, you know, evacuate a whole floor for the sake of one person? You can't do it. It's not morally right.
Yeah.
So yeah, things have changed major league. And a lot of it a good part of it comes back to the horrible behavioral health situation that we have in this country.
Yeah, I did. I was talking to somebody over the weekend about that, and he was telling me he's trying to get somebody a little bit of help, and he was saying it is almost impossible to do so. And then you throw on some of the state to state regulate, and then you overlay a regulatory process and the insurance process, and it's very difficult and a huge issue. I don't want to go down that road because we all are probably unfortunately familiar with it.
Yeah.
Jeff, were you gonna you know, talking about kind of that societal impact?
It's to Dave's point, it's huge. You know, we have patient safety calls every day, and then we flag patients that we know that might have a workplace violence issue or behavioral health issue, and we talk it after our patient safety call. It's just a rundown of all the safety alerts from the day before, and if people need help, you know, it's a cadence we started many years ago, right before COVID. It's worked very well for us. You know, we all done ton of safety huddles. I'm actually writing an article for ASHI on safety huddles. you know, with
Coming
Katie.
in, when's it gonna be out, Jeff?
I think March. Myself and Katie Quinn from Idaho,
Okay.
associate board member for Ashley, she's co-authoring with me. But that helps out a lot. We just opened up a new adult CRC center 20 blocks away from us in West Philadelphia. And, you know, as soon as we open it up, 5 minutes later, police are dropping a couple people off because of the needs of behavior. And again, we can go down this rabbit hole. I have my own ideas what we need to do on a federal level just because of what I see, but we can do another podcast on that.
That Jeff's not a bad idea. I'm definitely gonna follow up with you about that.
We could do a Netflix series on that one.
So, but you know, for related, you know, like Dave said, related back then, you know, a lot of that stuff for behavioral health really didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
You know, I hate to say this, they had institutions all over the place, as you know, as they closed in the late 70s, 80s, 90s. You know, either they got torn down or become different stuff now. But it's you know, I think back then there really wasn't you know, a lot of thought about behavioral health and tracking and trending people like they do now, like the Secret Service flags anybody, you know, through AI if they blurb something on the internet. Back then there was no internet.
Yeah.
So the computer was the size of probably 5 of my offices here, you know, the Whopper computer from War Games, you know, like those big ones.
Yeah, and it did as much as your watch.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But, you know, so back then, you know, having what would happen, unfortunately, President Kennedy, really, there may have been burp about it, but it probably was a lot on the watch on the traffic like there would be today versus back then, communication wise for the Secret Service and communication. So,
you know, what's interesting is, and just going back to that, the podcast that that Reiner did, there's a whole episode about Lee Harvey Oswald, obviously. And I'm not going to give it away. Like I said, people should listen to it, but just how they've tried to paint Oswald and how they talk about him in the podcast, just based on historical record, talking about illnesses and you know, it's interesting. When you talk about mental illness, it made me think of Lee Harvey Oswald and how historically sometimes he's been painted and what Reiner says about him. So I don't want to give anything away. Have you guys listened to it? That podcast?
No. I'll have to go back.
I think if you like history, you'd like it. This concludes episode 1. Please return to the Healthcare Facilities Network in the near future to view episode 2.